US Vice President J.D. Vance recently confirmed that Washington is considering a Ukrainian request for long-range Tomahawk cruise missiles, a weapon with a reported range of roughly 2,500 kilometers, or about 1,550 miles. That range, if weapons were to reach Ukrainian forces, would place deep Russian territory within striking distance and has immediately raised alarms about potential escalation. President Volodymyr Zelensky has reportedly urged the United States to sell Tomahawks to European partners, who would then transfer them to Kyiv. Vance stressed that any such transfer would ultimately require a decision from US President Donald Trump, saying the president would make the final determination. The comments underscore both the political sensitivity of the request and the fact that any change in US policy will be driven at the very top of the American government. Until now, President Trump had denied requests to provide Ukraine with long-range strike capabilities, citing concerns about escalation and the need to balance support for Ukraine with broader geopolitical calculations. But according to observers and some US officials, there are signs of a shift in tone. Kellogg, the United States special envoy to Ukraine, told Fox News that Trump has indicated Kyiv should have the ability to conduct long-range strikes into Russian territory. I think reading what he has said and reading what Vice President Vance has said, the answer is yes. Use the ability to hit deep. There are no such things as sanctuaries, Kellogg said, signaling a policy posture that could be interpreted as green-lighting more aggressive Ukrainian operations if the weapons were supplied. The potential implications are stark. Tomahawk cruise missiles are among the most capable long-range conventional strike systems in Western arsenals. Their range means they could be used to target logistics nodes, command centers, and other military infrastructure far behind front lines. Moscow has already warned that supplying such capability to Ukraine would be seen as a major escalation. That view was echoed in Moscow this week when Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov said Russia's military specialists were monitoring the possible supply of Tomahawks to Ukraine, while cautioning that the mere transfer would not, in his view, change battlefield realities. Peskov also raised a practical question that will be central to any decision: whether the United States or Ukraine would provide the targeting data necessary for such strikes, an issue with legal, technical, and political dimensions. For Kyiv, the argument is straightforward. Long-range strike capability could blunt Russian advantage by forcing Moscow to pull resources away from the front and protect rear areas, potentially easing pressure on Ukrainian defenders. Zelensky and other Ukrainian officials have framed the request as necessary to defend their country and restore territorial integrity. For European partners, the idea of acquiring Tomahawks and re-exporting them to Ukraine represents a way to bolster Kyiv while navigating domestic politics and legal frameworks that govern arms transfers. But for NATO and US policymakers, the calculus is fraught. Supplying weapons with the potential to reach Russian soil raises the prospect of a direct confrontation or miscalculation between nuclear-armed powers. Critics warn that opening deep strike options for Ukraine could invite a harsh Russian military or political response, complicating efforts to avoid a wider war. Advocates counter that failing to expand Ukraine's defensive tools may embolden Moscow and prolong the conflict, imposing greater costs over time. On the ground, analysts caution that while weapons can change tactical dynamics, they do not by themselves end wars. Logistics, training, intelligence, and sustainable supply chains matter enormously, as does international political cohesion. Even if Tomahawks were to be supplied via third parties, integrating them effectively into Ukrainian operations would require time, technical support, and secure targeting information. As this debate unfolds, the United States faces a choice that goes beyond military hardware. It is a decision about deterrence posture, alliance management, and how far Western countries are willing to push back against Russia without crossing thresholds that could produce uncontrollable escalation. The final call, according to Vance, rests with President Trump. But the conversation will involve military leaders, diplomats, European allies, and Ukraine itself. For now, officials in Washington and capitals across Europe appear to be weighing the options carefully, aware of the risks and potential rewards. Moscow's response will be watched closely. Even if Russian spokespeople suggest the transfers would not immediately alter battlefield outcomes, the Kremlin's political and military signaling will be a critical factor. Whatever decision is reached, it is likely to be one of the most consequential Western choices in the conflict to date, with implications not only for Ukraine's fight against Russian forces, but for the broader architecture of European security and the rules that have governed interstate conflict since World War II.